Now, there's a lot of controversy over whether or not you should have a burr on the edge or not. And my thinking for acrylic is don't have a burr. There's less chance of it grabbing and digging in if there's no burr. The burr will kind of act like a little hook, and it'll grab on the blank as it's rotating around and sort of want to jab the chisel into the work on you. Now, I could be wrong, but that's my theory. Now, I have backed off the tension here, and I forgot to do that after I got it into round. Now, I don't need a whole lot of torque once I get rid of those corners. See, what was happening was the corners were catching, and then, of course, it would stall out on me. Now, the reason I want to back off all that pressure that I put on when I used the pliers here is because there is the risk of collapsing everything a little bit if this nut is really, really tight. Now, I've never had this happen, but I can envision it happen. Or maybe cracking a little bit on the ends. Now, I was lucky, even though I forgot, everything worked out fine. And it might never happen, but I like to take the precaution and just back it off, and I'll just tighten it on finger tight. Or perhaps I might not use the nut at all. I might just come up against the bushing with the mandrel saver, which will be plenty enough for the torque I need. Now, those of you who are regular viewers and you've watched a lot of my workshop videos, you can remember me saying things like, I have never had it happen, but I can envision it happening. Well, I can, because ever since I was 7 or 8 years old, playing with my mechanos, I've been doing this kind of stuff. And if you've had a bad experience doing something in the past, you can sort of see where you may have a bad experience now. I don't need the tool rest. Get it out of the way here. And being as that I'm going to have to take this off anyway to change later, I may as well just take the nut off and I'll just use the mandrel saver. Okay. I won't be needing this extra bushing because the mandrel saver will come right up against the bushing there. Now, this does not have to be real tight. And I'm going to start out with the 150 grit here, very carefully. I don't want to take it right down to the bushings with the 150 because the 150 does leave little lines. And if I'm right down to the bushing, then... Yes, I do have a telephone. I'll be right back. Now, another thing that you've heard me say in my videos is I don't like to do retakes, so we'll continue on here. So anyway, if I go right down to the bushings with the 150 grit, that means that I'm going to have to go beyond the bushing with the finer sandpaper to get rid of the little lines. Anyway, here we go. One more thing. I live in what's known as a side-by-side. All this stuff, and especially the air cleaner, or the dust collector rather, it makes a lot of racket. In fact, it's so loud I always use my ear protection. Now, a side-by-side, at least that's what we call them here in Canada, means that you've got a house attached to you. And some people call them duplexes. Anyway, it's just after 9 o'clock here right now, and that means my neighbors have probably gone to work. Don't want to get the neighbors mad at me. Now, as you've probably guessed, I've cut out about 90% of the sanding here. It really didn't go this fast. Now, two things. First of all, I want to apologize for constantly bumping the camera. It was kind of in my way there. Next, we're going to do the wet sanding. It's going to bring out the shine, and then the polish. Anyway, that's the next step. I think this is going to look pretty good. Now, I have a lot of machines here that are made with cast iron, and this is one of them. So, cast iron does not like water. And of course this is water. In fact, I've said before that this machine, all I have to do is look at it with tears in my eyes and it'll rust. Anyway, see what we can do here. Now I have about 10 little pads like this. Now this one starts out at 1500 grit. Well, 1500, that's where I left off with the sandpaper, but I think this will do a little better job than that sandpaper. It won't have a tendency to clump up or glob or whatever you want to call it. And you're going to notice once I start doing this that it actually is going to be building up a slurry from the acrylic that's coming off. And yeah, you'll just see that. I'm not going to go through every single pad. I think there's about 10 of them. But I'm going to work my way right up to 12,000 grit. And so I'll show you this one, and then I'll show you the final one. Now I do have to slow it down a bit here, otherwise it'll throw water all over the place. And I find that with something about this diameter, about 700 RPM is as fast as I can go. Okay, now watch for the slurry. There, you can see it already. Now this first one is actually quite important, I think, because it's going to be removing a lot of the little lines that the sandpaper left on there. Wet sanding seems to work a lot better. I can actually hear it cutting. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move up to, I think it's 1800 grit, and then I'll just work my way right up through all the grits, right up to 12,000, and I'll show you that. About 5 minutes has passed now, and I finally got up to 12,000. I've used these pads several times, and I don't know how much more I'm going to get out of this one. I noticed that the grit is starting to come off at the edges. It has the abrasive on both sides of the pad, by the way, so they seem to last pretty long. Okay, we'll take a look at this and see how it looks, and then we'll put the polish on. And by the way, the polish also has a grit in it. I don't know what grade of grit it is, but I'm assuming that it is finer than the 12,000. You'll notice that I'm not getting a slurry here. I stopped seeing a slurry after about 4,000 grit. I actually don't need that much. Now I think this is different from a wax. A wax will leave a coating of wax on whatever it is you're doing, whereas this, it's a polish, and it's, I can actually feel it warming up. So I know it's cutting there. You'll notice that the bushing is coming off onto the paper towel there. Well, that polish has the abrasive in it, and it's actually cutting the metal. Eventually, once I get it all wiped off, I won't be seeing that. And I could actually feel it warming up a little bit there. Okay, I'm going to do that 2 or 3 more times. Then I'll zoom in nice and close, and we'll have a nice close look. Now I'm going to be doing the other blank exactly the same way. And because I want to have this pen finished tonight, I'm not going to video it. I usually say I can work 10 times faster if I'm not fooling around with the camera, but the truth of the matter is it's probably only 3 or 4 times faster. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the other blank exactly the same way. And the next time I see you, we'll be at the pen press. Well, we are at the pen press, but there's a couple of little things here I want to do yet. And that is where the edge here, or the end, presses up to, say, the part, it may not be exactly the same diameter. And if a person rubs their finger along the edge there, they might feel that this is a bit of a sharp edge. Not real sharp that you'd cut yourself, but you might feel it. I don't want anybody to feel it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just round these sharp edges off, starting with 800 grit and then 1500 grit. That way I'm not going to lose any of the shine here. And there's a nice, easy way to do this. Well, we are ready to press, but that's going to have to wait until I get back from visiting Mary in the care home. So we'll see you in about 2-3 hours. Well, it's pressing time. And if you're new into pen turning and assembling pens, it's always a good idea to lay everything out in the exact order of how it's supposed to go, with the blanks the right way around. For instance, you want to make sure that you don't accidentally press this one onto the nib assembly. And it's easy to do. I think I did something like that once. Anyway, let's get going here. So this little black decorative ring, it's kind of beveled. I don't know if you can see that. But it has to go on so that it's going to match up with the nib when you screw the nib on later. Okay. Now I'm going to be wanting to press this into here. Now, press it with my fingers as hard as I can so it'll stick. Now I'm going to go like this. And we'll tighten everything up. Okay. And press. Now this is going to go in here. Okay, and press. Now this piece is almost finished. Okay. There's a little cap on the end here that has to come off. Sometimes they come off easy and sometimes they don't. Now you notice that I turned the spring around. The reason I did that is because you put it on the other way and it will stick on the end, so that when you pull the refill out, you don't accidentally lose the spring. It'll be stuck on the end of the refill next time you go to change it. By the way, I am going to include a couple of extra refills. This is the transmission. Okay, now this should work. Yeah, it ejects the nib, or the refill rather, no matter which way you turn it, backwards or forwards. It's kind of nice. Okay, this part is done. Now this decorative gold ring, it's the same both ways. It doesn't matter which way it goes on. Okay, and press. Now the next step is just a little bit harder. Not hard, but you just have to be really careful, because this piece here gets pushed in until this shoulder is flush with the end of the brass tube. Okay, so it's like I say, it's a little harder. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on a pair of strong glasses so that I can get right in there and watch. Now very, very slowly. Very slowly. A little more. A little more. I think that's it. Looks good to me. What do you think? Now on a pen blank like this, where almost anywhere you look is nice, it's kind of hard to decide what you don't want to cover up. I would say offhand I would not want to cover this up. So I'll put the clip so that it's in sort of a area where there's less interesting design, which is probably right here. It can always be loosened and changed afterwards. Because this is not pressed on, it's going to be screwed on. And sometimes it's hard to get the thread started. But not today. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think I can tighten it right there. There we go. Well, we're almost done. The only thing left to do now is press it together. Now, you'll notice it's in the neutral position. In other words, the cartridge is back as far as it'll go, or the refill rather. So let's try and line it up here. Okay, how was that? Something like that, I think. Or was this supposed to match with that? Well, we can always change it later. Anyway, all right, it's together. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's clean it up and have a nice close look. Now, Jonathan, at the end of every pen turning series, which we are right now, there's a tradition. And if I forget to do it, I'll hear about it. So the tradition goes like this. Well, we're almost finished. Now you will recall that I said I was going to throw in a couple of extra cartridges, or rather refills. And this is a blue ink, this is a black ink. Now both of these are much better quality refills than the one that actually came with the pen kit, which is what is in your pen right now. You will find that these will write a lot like a fountain pen. They're rather expensive and I hope you really enjoy them. So I'm just going to include these in here. And tomorrow I'm going to be going to the ICS Craft and Bake sale, so maybe I'll see you there. Or maybe I can pass this on to somebody who can pass it on to you. Anyway, congratulations!